We are here today with Amanda Warne, whose website, absolutely wonderful collection of beautiful covers and whatnot, but a dark speculative fiction author who is probably out to cause a bit of trouble. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on at the moment, and then we'll get into all of the books.
Well, thank you for having me here. So I am a writer, and all I do every day is just explore worlds and fantastic characters, and I learn who they are. And half the time I get it wrong, and they inform me that I've got to change this and do that, and then I backtrack and do it all over again, and it gets a bit crazy in my house. So I jump into whatever they want me to do for the day, and I feel like I just kind of keep a note of what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my job as a writer. It's let the characters
Good
do
job.
what they need to do.
Yeah, good job to have. Definitely a good one to have. All right, so you've got several books out already. Let's see here. I can do math, and I counted three, four.
Well, I've got two of my own, Heavy Dirty Soul, which is an adult fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've just released The Reluctant Wizard, which is my debut into the children's genre.
Oh.
Um, I co-write with Michelle Crow. We do the Hidden Truths trilogy,
Uh-huh.
and we're just writing book two at the moment. So that's coming out, and then I publish an annual anthology, which is it focuses something on fantasy and another element. So last year it was Christmas and fantasy. This year it's fire and magic.
Ooh,
Yeah.
fancy. Very exciting. Okay, we'll start with Heavy Dirty Heart, if I'm
Heavy
getting
Dirty
it's your
Soul.
soul.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, wow. Obviously, I need more tea in my life.
No, you're right. I'm the coffee person. Too much coffee, and then I'm like whizzing through everything and go, oh, I probably should have stopped a coffee ago.
Ah, yeah. Although those moments can be productive in a frenetic sort of way.
Yeah, they certainly can be. Oh, I get overwhelmed by too quickly, too cut, and I can't keep up. So I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
type fast enough.
Yeah, it's always the problem. It's always the problem. All right, Heavy Dirty Soul. So tell us a bit about that.
Heavy Dirty Soul was the story that I had to write, and it was the one that scared me the most, and
Oh,
so I gravitated towards it. And I thought, if I can pull this off, then I can write. So it was just to convince myself more than anything. So it's about Ivy, who's a witch, and we explore the witch trials. And
hmm.
I start the book back in the 15th century,
Okay.
and she's burnt at the stake. And the difference between this book and other books was that I told it from her perspective.
Ah,
And so she's a little bit of a human candlestick, and I really got into trying to keep her alive as long as possible on the stake, and how the yeah, and it's quite gruesome. And during that time, she curses the world,
mm.
and this curse is so strong that it affects her reincarnation pattern.
Ah,
So then each chapter we jump 100 years into a different culture where she kind of faces the same similarities, um, you know, um, trials against women, trials against witches, and
hmm.
then we end up at the end in 100 years in the future in an underworld city. So it starts in the past, it really explores the past, but it still kind of explores those present moments that we still deal with. And I'm really fascinated with socialization and enculturation. Like, what are we teaching our children, and where are these lessons coming from?
Right.
It's surprising how the history of these silly little lessons that we give our children to make it safe in our society. And I go, well, hold on, where did that come from? And so I really explored that, and tried to give Ivy a great platform to see these mistakes happening again that might have come from the previous life, and how's it going to affect her future lives.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, but the jumping,
Mm.
like, because jumping 100 years, that was a full book research per chapter. And So I'm really thankful that I come from a multicultural society. I have wonderful cousins and friends and from all different parts of the world who were able to incorporate language, who I was able to lean on and go, okay, I'm stuck at this point, I need help. And it was just great just to pull in the resources. So it was the book to prove to myself that, yes, I can do this.
Yeah. Wow, there's a lot that goes into that because you've got the history bit and then you've got the social bit. And oh, wow.
Yeah.
I like it. That's great.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. That's going to be fascinating and something.
That was my debut.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's quite the novel to debut with.
Yeah, well, thank you. It really was the one that scared me. And even to this day, I look back and I go, okay, maybe I could have changed this. Maybe I could have changed. No, leave it. And that's the problem. Like, when I was still trying to find my perfect editor, and I'm still trying to find my writers group and all this type of thing. I was still trying to find myself. So it was really a discovery book. And I've just determined never to change it, just to kind of prove that was my starting point. That was my great, like, I achieved something that I felt was impossible.
I like it. Yeah. Wow. Wow. And of course, there's only more to go from. So, okay, next book that is yours, and we'll get into the co-writing a bit later, is The Reluctant Wizard, and that's children's fiction, which is way different.
So Eli came to me during Michelle and I wrote. So Michelle lives in America and I live in Australia. So we do a lot of Skype meetings and a lot of Facebook times. And while I was writing and developing this, like, Eli kept popping in my head, and he's like, "Oh, come and see this." And I kept saying to Michelle, "Look, I'm sorry, I just need a week just to kind of figure out who this character is, what he's doing." So while I was finishing writing Conceal Power, I was developing Eli and exploring that. And he just has this really unusual world. At first, I wrote a draft. It was really rough. I'm like, when you love something so much, but you just don't want to put your heart into it because you're like, I don't know if other people will love this, because I have a very unusual way of loving weird things. So I threw it to my editor, my wonderful editor, Amy, and she's like, "Oh my God, you need to write this, but back to front. You got it all around the wrong way." And I was like, that was the missing piece. That's what I was a bit unsure about. So what I did was I went, okay, and I pulled out all the elements and I made him show me everything about the world, and I clicked it together. And book one is just skimming the surface at 110,000 words. And I originally thought, I can write children's books. I can write 30,000 word books, chapter books. Yep, easy done. But the more I gave to it, I was like, oh, no. And then I was like, oh, look, I think I'm going to end up at 150 here. Like, it's just, I couldn't pare it back. And so it is a fantasy book, but I consulted I have 3 children. I consulted them every step of the way. It deals with a lot of issues that we are dealing with in society today, like homelessness, hunger. I really am fascinated with the people who have and have nots, and how are kids viewing this? Kids, they feel everything. So Eli is, I call him an empath, and he really explores his feelings in his determination, like, I'm going to fix the world. I want to fix the world. And they kind of realizes, okay, the world is so big, I might not be able to fix it, but I can do this to contribute. And so it puts it back into perspective that, the world is not on your shoulders. You are one little clink in the chain. So the thing about his world is everybody has magic. Everyone has magic. And whether your abilities are useful or not will determine your worth in society.
Ah.
So you don't learn magic, you grow magic. And you're able to grow it. So he gets accepted into the Wizard Academy. Now, in his hometown, there's this huge war that's been going on forever and ever, and it's between the wizards and the warlocks. And the peace treaty is that the wizards rule during the day and the warlocks rule at night. So the warlocks are kind of like this mysterious people who have control over the night. And so nobody really sees them because they're at home locked away.
Right.
So, again, the wizards kind of rule. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to join the wizards. I'm going to grow my magic. I'm going to learn everything I need to learn. I'm going to come back and I'm going to fix hunger and I'm going to fix homelessness. I'm going to fix all these problems that are horrible. It's horrible to see everyone like this. And then he kind of learns the secrets of the wizards. And he's like, you know what? I don't think this is a solution either. And and it's just, you know, he's taken one lot of world problems, gone into another to come back to fix this one, realised, hold on, that world's got problems as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like the grass is greener on the other side.
Right.
So, yeah.
Is
book one.
I can see why you needed 110,000 words.
Yeah. Well, I also made the chapters quite easy and accessible. Right. So they range between 800 and 2,000 words, mostly at that 120 mark, 1,200 mark.
Yep.
And I just wanted it so that if you were to read it to your children, you sat down and you can get them in bite-sized pieces.
Right.
And the language is accessible, so if a child needed to read this to themselves, it's not poetic, it's not full on, it's not complicated. And that was a problem, you know. I'm trying to pull out quotes for marketing and I'm like, oh, but there's no poetry. There's nothing there. Like, it's just easy, accessible. And then I go, well, if I put this, I'm going to put this whole paragraph in.
Oh no.
So it's accessible, and that was the whole idea, is that if I have a million books behind me, and I read these books, and the kid's like, oh, what are you reading? Oh, that's fascinating. I want to read that too. And I'm like, oh, well, actually, you have to wait till you're older. And then when they're reading books and they're like, read this, and, oh, yes, and I read it, and I go, that's great, but it's not a story I can love myself. So I wanted a story that I can read and go, here, kids, read this. And then they love it. We can talk about it. So it's more accessible literature for all ages. Yeah, so that's why I put it up. Online it says 10 to 14 ages. It's a problem with the categories because you can't say from 10 to 100.
Yeah.
But it is accessible. So I'm hoping that grandparents love it as much as children.
Yeah, interesting. I'm curious how the marketing for that goes, because if you market just to children, it's going to be, you know, you're missing that whole extra category.
Yeah, so on Amazon, it's for children. On Barnes & Nobles, it's for teenagers. And for Smashwords, I was able to do all three. Children and teens. Yeah, so thank you, Smashwords.
Someone actually understands book categories.
That's right, yeah. So, yeah, look, the marketing's hard. I have a few bits and pieces out there going at the moment. But it was just, okay, I just need to find people who love fantasy. So anyone who loves fantasy and just wants to not just escape, but, you know, fall in love with the characters, that's who I aim the book towards.
I like that. That's, good goal, because sometimes, you know, with things that deal with the harder issues, you get a lot of, oh, you have to be an adult to read this, or if they do it for the kids, oh, well, we'll make it sort of, you know, I don't know how to describe that, surface level almost.
Yeah. But kids they see these things in real life. They see it, you know, in the streets. Like, homelessness is huge, especially after the global financial crisis, the crisis that we're facing now. It's not, you know, something that you can walk through the street and cover your children's eyes, and in a way you shouldn't do that anyway. I don't do that with my children. My middle child, he's very passionate. He's like, Mum, let's go buy some waters. I'm like, okay, let's go. And then he'll hand them out, and I'll just stand back. That was his idea. He's used his own pocket money, and I was like, there you go. And then, but it's not a matter of just handing out things or helping that way. It's engaging. These people sometimes haven't even had a conversation. So I was always asking, how long have you been on the streets? Tell me your story. And they're just shocked that I'm engaging with them, because they're probably feeling like they need to blend in with the brick wall and be the invisible junk on the floor or something. It's horrible. It's horrible to know that humans are experiencing this. And that a lot of people get quite outrageous when it's pointed out and go, oh, hold on, we need to help out. Anybody who's homeless that's come up and asked me for something, I've always just given it to them, because I can just try and imagine myself in those shoes. Like, how hard is it to go up and say, look, I need help? And they're saying, I'm desperate, I need $10, I need something to buy a meal or something. I'm happy to do that, because that courage that they put through to get to that point, just to ask me, I think how many people said no before they got to me.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely sensing a theme in your stories about the societal issues of the world.
It's more like the human conditioning. I'm fascinated with humans. Like with my other fantasy, I explore other worlds. So if I take human and I put them completely out of context on, I don't know, a water world or something.
Sure.
How are they going to react? How do they survive? And I love being in a multicultural world where we, in a society where all the perceptions are different. So I have an Indian cousin. I've got my brother-in-law's from Turkey, and the conversations you go, oh yeah, I love this about this movie, and they're like, oh, but did you see this, this, and this? And I'm like, oh, mind blown, like it came from a different way. So I'm always throwing these curveballs to think differently outside of, what is a human. So if you take away the skin color and you take away, what we eat, because it's so much in culture, what are we down? What are we really? We're just this flesh. We eat the same, we poo the same, we sleep the same, we bleed the same, we do all these things. So exactly. I'm not interested in culture. Like, I love culture. I love how it's perceived differently. But at the same time, I love the human being. Like, how far can we push that? What stops us? So with my children's book, I had to put my son on the cover, but at the same time, I wanted this child who wasn't set in time and culture. So I wanted, like I said, an accessible book, but, someone here in Australia could read it, as well as a child in Ethiopia or a girl in middle of Europe or wherever. Like, it was still accessible, because it's about the human conditioning and not exactly in one culture.
Right. I like that. The human condition question.
Yeah. I mean, we are really, like, we're machines in ourselves.
Right, exactly. And if you break us down, take away all the cultural bits, which is really hard to think about because it's so ingrained. But if you do that, then, oh, wow, it's a fascinating question. Okay, we still have more books to talk about. Okay, now the Hidden Talents Trilogy is co-writing, yeah?
Yeah, so that's the Hidden Truths Trilogy, and we've got
my goodness.
book 1, Conceal Power, writing book 2 and kind of brainstorming book 3 at the moment. Okay. And Michelle lives in Tennessee in America, and we're like soul sisters, so we kind of like, this is a really different co-writing relationship, because a lot of co-writers will write something and then throw it and then edit, and they'll write their piece or whatever. We don't do that. We write over each other. So I'll put an idea, sometimes she'll change it or whatever, and then she'll put her ideas in, and we literally write over each other. So you can't tell who wrote what.
I like that.
So it's
Fascinating.
so when you read like something like Heavy Duty Assault and then you go to Conceal Power, you're like, oh, it's familiar but still different. So it's a complete blend of each other. So yeah, we trust each other because it's not about our own writing ego, and that sounds really bad for other writers, but it's about what's best for the story and the voices of those characters. So I'm stronger in Mario, where she's stronger in Riley, and then we're a blend of Liam. So Conceal Power is about Riley, who's a witch. No, sorry, she's a psychic, a very, very bad psychic.
Oh, no.
And she meets two guys. So she's, these hopeless women that she just puts so much work into her business, and she's just struggling to meet a guy. But every time she gets a chance, she's like, I gotta go back to work, like my business. So she's just trying to like step out of that. And both Michelle and I do the same thing. Like we've got families, we've got husbands, but when work happens, we're like, oh my god, see you later, we're gonna like work. So we were looking at that part of the woman, today's woman, is that we're so engrossed in work. So we were exploring that idea, and then she's like, okay, I'm gonna meet a guy, and accidentally meets two guys at the same time. Mario, who is a shape-shifting reptilian, and Liam is a secret society member who is, and they happen to be at war with one another, and they kind of like navigate that there's something wrong with each other, and it's a really odd love triangle. Look, I don't write romance. I don't really like going into that lovey-dovey stuff, but when I do write romance, it's really weird and whacked up and just interesting, because I'm like, everything's being done in the romance, and I'm going, if it's weird, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna write this.
Love it. That's
so
grand.
It's really like back to front, and yeah, it's a really messed up love triangle. It's fantastic. So and we write from all three perspectives.
Ooh.
Yeah, so you can really find their backgrounds. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm also getting distracted by shape-shifting reptilian, and then immediately thinking, oh look, he's a gecko.
Yeah, he's like the sweetheart of reptilians, because you think of them and they're like really gritty and horrible, but when you see him in his own society, you're like, whoa, this guy, like I've grown to love him. He's nice, but then he's like still part of this society and these beings.
Yeah.
Whoa. So it's amazing how we can fall in love with these characters and trust them, even though they come from these crazy backgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun. And then secret societies.
Oh, yeah. So that was a nightmare to research. Like, how do you get information from a secret society? And and you're like, well, what happens with secret societies? They don't give out their secrets.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole in the definition bit.
Secret, yeah. So we've kept it quite mysterious, because every time we can't answer a question, we try and dive deep. We're like, oh, okay. And it was really interesting, because every time I was researching, I must have been researching too heavy. I started getting invitations like, come to our meeting. So, initiation, I was like, okay, I'm going to step back. I've just done a little bit too much. Yeah, my husband's like, what are you into now? I'm like, nothing, I swear. I'm just a writer.
Wow. That's wonderful.
All those crime writers who are worried that the police are going to turn up and look at their browser. I'm like, yeah, I'm dealing with another issue. Yeah.
I mean, that is definitely one of the more unusual side effects of research that I've ever heard of.
Yeah, like I'm just really expecting either secret societies, police, or the aliens themselves, where they'll be like, okay, back off. I'm like, okay, I will. But then it's like, type it in, like, I just don't know when to quit,
Well, I mean, you are a writer. That is rather in the job description.
That's right. Yeah, we need to know these things, even though we probably shouldn't know them, and we definitely will share these secrets.
Well, shouldn't know something has never stopped me before, so...
Yeah, exactly. Like, you need to know these to know not to need them. That's my theory.
Uh-huh. Ooh, fun. Fun. Okay. Moving on to the anthologies because, we still actually have to talk about them.
So I started publishing Anthologies 2019, and that was the Christmas and fantasy theme, and it's called the Fantasy Christmas Tales from the Hearth, and it was 11 other authors. I'm number 12, and we just explore Christmas and fantasy in any possible way. So my story is called Franken-Santa, where 3 little elves accidentally kill Santa Claus, and they think it's a good idea to bring him back to life, and they were successful in that. However, Santa's not the same. So it's a little bit of comedy, a little bit of fun. It's definitely, this one's geared towards adults. I've been workshopping a children's version because I was like, oh, this world needs a little bit more exploring, and that was an idea that I developed with my children as well. They're like, they love Frankenstein, they love Santa. I was like, oh, these two can go together.
Yeah, perfect combination. Yeah.
And December 2020, we've got the magic in fire. So it's exploring really fire, but how the magic around it. So, I mean, fire it's magical in itself. And so my story is about 2 guys who are the masters of fire, and they're the last of their kind. And what's happened is a local king has been trying to steal them and to harvest their magic. And they're coming back to rescue their brotherhood.
I see.
It's quite gritty. It's quite, we're going to stand up to a king in his power. How dare him steal our power?
Oh, interesting. Oh, sorry, my screen has been attacked by the cat.
Oh.
Woken up from her nap now. Needs some attention.
Sometimes they need attention and they will demand it.
Yeah, well, yeah. Thank you so much, Kat. Super helpful. Okay, so fire. Does this one also have 12 other or 11 other authors?
It will be 11 other stories, but one story is co-written.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So some, the thing is, with being part of brilliant fantasy groups is that we all lean on each other and we share each other's success. And I said to them, I would really love to do an anthology. And they're like, whatever you do, I'm in. I was like, okay. And then I've got all of these stories coming in. It's great. So a lot of the authors from last year came onto the board this year. We've got some new authors. Next year again, we will do a blend. I'm hoping to stretch it to 15 authors. Because everyone's like, oh, it just depends on the theme. Because I said, if you don't love the theme, don't write a story. So it was a matter of, being in love with your story. Because if you don't love your story, then the readers won't.
Yes. I think, well, of course, then you get the people who do the right to market thing. And some of them can make it work very well. But I've always, if I don't love the story, then why? That's
right. I looked into all that right to market when I first started writing, and it's kind of like, you're churning out words for the sake of words. And I write these epic stories, and they're absolutely massive, and it takes so long to get through them that I just didn't want to then churn out something that I wasn't happy with, or I couldn't talk about and be passionate about it. So I kind of just went, you know what, I have to develop my own practice. Where am I going? Put my head down and get it done. And that's how I kind of approached writing.
Yeah.
I could find my own feet.
It's a good way to go. And especially considering your debut, I'd say it's a fantastic way to continue.
Oh, thank you. It wasn't my first book. I've written quite a few, actually. Probably 10 before I started publishing. I've been writing for 10 years. And I gave myself that 10-year mark as like, okay, just explore and study. And I was having babies, and just to kind of know what, interested me. Also, I wasn't really comfortable about talking about these really big ideas until I really understood them. So, I studied mental health, I studied psychology, I went out and I used to mentor women from prison and socialize them back into society, just so that, I could see what the human conditioning was and really help someone in return. So I wasn't just taking these lessons, but I was helping give back in return. So, and it was just, I needed that time to let those things sink in and feel that and understand that and really empathize with people's, because these women come from horrific childhoods, and it's kind of natural that they lean into crime, so that when they have finished their time, that they're like, you know what, I didn't like that person, who am I going to be now? So it was great to see that growth. But at the same time, I learned so much about society, things that I wouldn't know about society, and go, wow, we had these systems in place and these support systems, and they fail epically on so many kids. So it really kind of changed me, and I needed that 10 years to go, right, that's it. I just need to know what exactly am I writing and why am I writing it. So I gave myself 10 years. I started publishing in 2019. I was like, right, that's it. I'm ready to take the next step. I kind of feel like I've got my feet now, sort of. It's a weird, wacky world.
Yeah. Well,
2020 happened.
Gotten wackier.
Yeah, 2020 happened, so.
I'm hoping it's not the whole decade and it's just like the 1 year.
Yeah. I was, when we went into lockdown here, it was quite instant. I had, when you can kind of like, what, I'm just going to prepare for worst case scenario. And I ran to the cheap shop and brought all these canvases and all these art supplies. And the next day we locked down. And I was like, whoa, that was really quick. So, the schools were out. I was homeschooling. I was editing. So my friend Marie Jin, she's got her book out now. It's The Last Regret. I was in the middle of a structural edit with that. I was trying to finish The Reluctant Wizard. The editor's like, right, I've got all this time now. I want the book. And I was just juggling. And it was just a crazy moment in time. And the kids were great. They were like, okay, Mum, set us up. Now I'm going to write. Because they knew, well, if I don't get writing time, I go, rah! I need to get this out. Like, I get frustrated. So they set me up more than I set them up academically. They knew I have a limit, and I was hitting that limit. So, yeah, and it was interesting. They got to explore so much art, and that's how I teach through art. So, it's
very interesting. Well, here's to hoping that next year is going to be better.
Yes. I think everybody's working towards a better year.
Oh, I really desperately hope so. Anyways, do you have any big last plans you'd like to share before we go and do the whole sign off?
No, I wanted to say thank you so much for this opportunity. This is actually my very first interview.
Oh, well, it was wonderful.
So it was really great to speak and meet you, and yeah.
You too. Now, reminder, this won't go up until January because time travel is fun.
Yes. Yeah, so the anthology will be out and working, so great.
I'll be sure to include all of the links in the description box because, clickable things are very useful.
They are, definitely. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, I've got plenty of books coming. So like I said, I've written so many. Now I've got to get them into the publishing world.
Fun.
I know, it's a big goal to set. 2021 is going to be very busy.
Oh my God. I don't want to think that far ahead, but I should because, planning in advance is a useful technique.
Yes, so I like to get my covers, and a minute I've got that cover, I'm like, okay, publishing date, and then it's just a matter of like cleaning and getting it ready. So yeah, when I'm always kind of like in brainstorming stage until I cover. Once that cover's there, it feels real.
I understand that one. The cover really does kind of solidify things.
It does, yeah. And I feel like I just can't really grasp that story properly until that image is there. I'm a very visual person, hence my author portrait.
Which is really cool, by the way. Just like, wow.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the traditional author portraits.
They're a little staged.
Generic and they're staged, and they're all got the same smile. And there's the Sydney Writers Fest. Yes, exactly. The Sydney Writers Festival have this little catalogue, and I open it up every year, and it's just pages and pages of faces posed exactly the same way with their names. I'm like, oh my god, I feel like this is really boring. So I was like, I can't be like that. I can't be doing that. So I went full portrait, full art style.
It's fantastic. Yeah, great. All right, well, have a fantastic day. Go cause a bit of trouble because, why not?
Exactly.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.